Evening. I'd like to call to order the Hayden City Council meeting on Tuesday, April 26, 2022. It is now 5:00 p.m. I would like to have a roll call, please. Abby?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Looks like we got a quorum. We're going to start off with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Alan White, Councilwoman White's husband, to lead us, please.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, first item up is our consent calendar, and I'm going to be removing item 1Q from the consent calendar. And here's our list of items on the consent calendar. 1A, approval of April 12, 2022 City Council workshop minutes. 1B, approval of April 12, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. 1C, approval of April 18, 2022 Joint City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission workshop minutes. 1D, ratification of FunFlix outdoor movie screen rental contracts for 2022 Hayden Movie Nights in the Park. That's a fun event. 1E, approval of 2022 Hayden Days Entertainment Agreement with Kelly Hughes Band. 1F, acceptance of James D. and Latanya K. Keogh right-of-way dedication and grant of easement. 1G, approval of increase to Public Works crew members starting pay. 1H, approval of Carrington Apartments streetlight cost of installation agreement. 1I, approval of Carrington Meadows second edition streetlight cost of installation agreement. 1J, approval of Flame and Cork Estates final plat. 1K, approval of Great American Financial Services contract for lease of City Hall copiers. 1L, approval to purchase Intermountain sign and safety message board trailer. 1M, approval of 2022 Idaho Granite Works paver agreement Memorial Day. 1N, authorization to advertise for bids for the 2022 chip seal project. 1O, approval of cooperative funding agreement with the City of Dalton for 2022 chip seal project. 1P, approval of fiscal year 2022 second quarter treasurer's report. And lastly, 1R, approval of bills for payment. I'm looking for a motion, please.
He said he removed it. Oh, is that the one he removed?
You removed Q.
Q was removed.
He removed.
Q was removed.
I'll motion to approve after discussion, I guess. Second. For a motion?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Do you want any discussion?
We're going to discuss.
Oh, yeah, discussion.
Okay, yeah, I'll go first. Okay, regarding item 1D, the ratification from FunFlix, the fiscal impact says the city will pay $629.13 each, and then funding source ICCU and P1FCU will reimburse the city. Is this basically a zero sum for us?
Yep, it's pretty much
We'll put
a
it out and they
pass-through. Yep.
pay us back?
Exactly.
Okay, good. Item 1E, Hayden Days Entertainment Agreement with Kelly Hughes, $3,000. So the city's paying the band $3,000 to play. Do we get it?
We get sponsors for Hayden Days. So
It
the
covers.
last several years, we've come out really well on Hayden Days.
Okay.
We don't go into the hole for
Yeah,
it.
that's what my question, basically,
Yeah.
through the proceeds of the event.
Through the
it
sponsorships that
covers.
we get through the event, yes, it
Great.
covers that.
Great, thank you. Item 1G, Public Works crew member starting pay. I get it. I mean, how many, we have 2 openings and probably like so many places around everywhere, we can attract workers for the pay we're offering. as the budget nears, I just, my own personal mention might be that I think everybody needs to get prepared for the ripple effect of this type of thing. You know, if we increase this, then it's only right to increase those who've been here for, you know, a long time. And I think this is just going to ripple all the way through the budget. So I guess that's really my only comment on that. Item 1L, approval of new message board. The 15,800, where is that coming from?
We had budgeted 50,000 for a water truck, and because of the cost of that, we're not going to be able to do it. So they're able to get this assigned. We usually use at least two. We only own one. We borrowed two additional.
We actually own two, and we borrowed three.
So we have to, and so we're taking the 15,000 out of what we budgeted for the water truck.
Okay, so is this one of those that they trailer it around and park it that says road closures and all that kind of stuff?
And that they're running about a little over 18,000 right now. This is a holdover that's brand new.
Oh.
And so it's a good buy. That's the only reason that we didn't wait for next budget year.
Right, okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Woody, as usual here, and again, this is really, a lot of it I'm sure is normal, but it's just for my education, hopefully the people here in the audience. Page 8 of 14, Lake City Law Group, $16,356, when the normal is usually around 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there.
10 to 12, yeah.
Yeah, 10 to 12. I've seen the itemization of it, and this was just for March. And I'm going to assume, based on the numerous requests of Lake City Law, that the number next month could quite possibly be significantly higher than this number. Possible, but I guess 16,356. What is the primary difference here between what's normal and this big jump?
Well, a lot of it is the research and time being put into making sure that the integrity of the process for mayor is protected and that appropriate research is done there and that you guys are given proper direction and options to choose from. So the mayoral appointment process has certainly increased this. I don't want to step on Councilwoman White. She had some questions about this as well, and she questioned, rightfully so, having two of us at some meetings for a period of time before my partner went out on maternity leave. And so one of the things we had explained when Caitlin left on for her next adventure and Lake City Law retained the contract is, instead of the city having one person available to them as legal counsel, you would have a team. But in order for us to get appropriately up to speed, it's most efficient for us just to attend the meetings together rather than, especially where we're going to bifurcate the responsibilities. So Katie's going to handle land use related matters eventually, and I will handle all general counsel. And so it's more effective to just be here and hear it all at once than for me to be here and then go back and explain it to her, where then we both bill, and then there's further discussion. In our experience, it's just been most efficient for a period of transition to have both of us attending the meeting. So I would say it's a couple of things that have increased from the 10 to 12 to the 16 for the month of March, the mayoral issues. And we just right now also have a significant amount of land use related analysis that's been required as we are coming into construction season. And let's not forget, we've had zone text amendments and ordinances related to text. So all of those things compiled, there was a lot of work done in 1 month.
Right, okay, thank you.
I'd like to add something that
Yeah.
before our new attorneys came on board, it's the same law firm that we had before. And John Cafferty was our attorney for quite a while. And then Caitlin Kling would attend the meetings with John as a team until she could get up to speed. So what we're seeing is pretty much normal. It does take a while for them to know the specifics, and there's a lot of detail that has to be learned by the legal counsel to properly represent us, and we want that. So it's understandable. I just wanted to add that.
I appreciate that. And also there were some meetings where we did not charge for both of us. So We only charged for both of us if we were both contributing substantively to information that was being presented at the meeting.
Okay. On page 9 of 14, the Mid-Mountain Land and Timber, $2,500. Is that trees or something? What is that?
It's a bond refund.
Okay, thank you. Page 10 of 14, Saturday Night Incorporated, 2211. I'm again going to, I use that word, assume that that's paid for out of proceeds, so we
Yeah,
aren't
it's the team
city-
shirts for the kids
Okay,
and
yeah.
coaches, so.
Okay. Page 11 of 14, Viking Construction, are these all bond refunds, it looks like?
The Viking is an impact fee refund. That's the law impact fees that we're refunding right now because we don't have a suitable project to spend the money on.
Okay, so they've been sitting there and come to the expiration date or whatever? Okay. And that's about it for me, thank you.
Let's go down to
Hi.
the other side here.
Turn.
Or Roger, whichever.
Roger.
Yeah, go
Would you
ahead.
have-
Councilmember Satterfield.
Just a quick question for Alan. The sign, did they make such a sign that works as a speed? You know how the sheriff's department has that speed sign
They do,
combo?
well, their speed sign is really just, I don't think it does message per se. I could be wrong. I'm not familiar, I'm familiar with the sign, but I'm not familiar with all its wording.
I know what you guys need it for, but I was just curious if it could also be used to set up when it's not being used for other stuff.
We would have to see if there was a way of wiring a radar system into it, because that's how they do the speed
Okay.
part of it. But
Killing two birds with a stone.
yeah, I don't know, Roger.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Councilmember White, please.
Yes, okay. I had some of the same questions that Councilman Ed had. But I also have questions about item H and I, the Carrington Apartments streetlight costs and the streetlight installation. I guess, Brett, would you be able to talk on that?
And Alan can mention this as well. Rob is not here. So this is an issue that Casey, so Kootenai Electric and Avista both provide power in the city. And when a developer comes in and they do a subdivision, we want growth to pay for itself. And so KC stopped charging developers the cost for their streetlights. And so we were concerned with that, and we're trying to come up with a way to have them pay for those lights. So what we did was we engaged with them and said, look, we want growth to pay for itself. The developers, we want you to pay the cost of those lights. And so what those agreements are for both of those subdivisions, one of them is for the Carrington Apartments, the other is the Carrington. It's one of the phases to the north that Viking has agreed to pay those amounts to cover the cost of the number of streetlights that they're putting in, as well as 18 months worth of power for them. Because what happens is they're not charging the developer to put them in, but they've increased their monthly amount to the city, that the city is paying. And I can't remember the exact amount, but it went something like from $20 to $35 per month, so that then they're recouping the cost of those over a long period of time, which all the citizens are paying for. And so we take those funds in this agreement and we put that into the streetlight fund to help pay for the cost of installation and the 18 months of power. So the other cities are facing the same thing, and we're gathering information with Kootenai and Avista to see if there's a better way to recoup those costs. And so more to be heard, but Sandra came in and asked a good question. We talked about that. And so this is a good thing, we think, that we're one of the cities trying to recoup the costs and make sure that the developers are paying their cost and not the citizens.
Is this basically a pass-through, basically? We're being charged for it, and Viking, I guess, has agreed to pay whatever they charge us?
Yeah, but it's not exact because KEC can't give us an exact amount with how they compute everything. And so we've agreed, we found some costs for like the Cobra heads, and those amounts are in the agreement that they'll agree to pay for those Cobra heads. That's more of a pass-through. The difficult part is the actual power, cost of power. We can't get an exact amount out of them, so we did the best we could to have them pay their impact for those streetlights. And they agreed to pay it, but there could be a time where a developer maybe will say, well, we're not going to pay that. And so that's why we're working with both of them to see if we can come up with a better solution. But in the meantime, we did this one other time on Viking project, and then now these two. So anyways, anything?
No, I think that just to really clarify, we can buy, for streetlights, there's two ways of paying for them. So if you buy down the cost of electricity in the past, you could pay for the infrastructure, so the base, the light, the conduit, and then you get charged a reduced rate for the power, for the service, and they maintain it. So it's power, maintenance, and everything else on the light. What Kootenai Electric did was they did away with that part of it. They're saying, no, you're going to pay for the lights, the poles, the conduit, the base, and everything is part of your monthly fee. And so what that did was we had no way of a developer of paying their share of putting the infrastructure in, and it put the cost onto the city. So we're trying to equalize that the best we can until we can come up with a better solution.
Right. Thank you.
Councilmember White, do you have any other questions?
Yes, there was one more item on the invoices. It was on page 3. Let's see. The City of Post Falls prosecution legal fees of $4,000. So
That's our monthly amount. We have, so Post Falls is doing our prosecution services, and so we have it's $50,000 for the year, and so that's our kind of the payment plan.
We used to pay the Kootenai County for that, now we do Post Falls.
Okay.
Because they have the prosecution department that we work with, so.
Okay, thank you. That was it for me. Thank you.
I have a question. It's related to both 1H and 1I, excuse me. I just want to make sure that part of this installation costs of these fixtures and poles, that the total costs are being borne by Viking and that the city is no way contributing to the cost. Is that true?
We did the best we could to have them cover the cost.
We have no way of getting that information, and it can't be provided apparently. So this is based on costs we're seeing with other, like Avista. This was the numbers that we came up with to try and.
That's not my question. Maybe I should read it. I just want to make sure, is the city paying any money to pay for these lights that we are required them to put in? Are we bearing any of that cost?
I believe so.
I would.
We can't tell you exactly because KEC will not give us, they cannot give us the cost of that. They've built into their rates. They say, okay, $35 per month per light. They will not or cannot tell us the breakout of the cost to install and all of those costs. And so what we went and did was, okay, out on the market, these Cobra heads cost about this amount and to install, and so we.
Okay, let me rephrase.
So it's the best guess we can get.
We are not paying any upfront costs on
No.
these. That's
No.
That's my
There you go.
question. There's another method that's being used that we're trying to work out, but we are not paying for what the contractor requires to put in upfront.
No.
Correct. That's all I need to know. Thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion, any other questions that may have come up from council? Well then, hearing none, I would ask Abby if we could do Roll call on the motion to approve the consent calendar, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Great, thank you. On to the next item, we have public comment, and I'm just going to take them as there. We have three individuals that would like to make a, we have 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, and Abby will be the timer on this. First person is Renee Zimmerman. So Renee, would you come to the podium? Would you state your name and what your address is, please?
Absolutely. Good evening, members of the City Council, members of the audience. My name is Renee Zimmerman. I'm with Zipley Fiber. So we're on Government Way as well as in Hayden. And so the address is 2115 North Government Way in Coeur d'Alene, if you want a specific address. There you have it. And I will not take 5 minutes. I only need a few minutes. I'm the community development manager for Zipley Fiber, and Zipley Fiber is your local high-speed fiber internet company, having built fiber to over 40,000 homes and businesses in Kootenai County, with more planned in the future. So I recently partnered with 4 different chambers, the Hayden Chamber, Coeur d'Alene, Rathdrum, and Post Falls, to produce a 4-chamber ribbon cutting event. And so that's why I'm here this evening, is to invite you as well as the public to join us at this 4-chamber ribbon cutting event on May 11th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at our retail location at 2115 North Government Way. And the reason why we're doing this, we're celebrating Zipley Fiber investing millions of dollars in high-speed fiber here in Idaho these past 2 years. Music will be provided by Logan Heaps, and we will provide coffee as well as lunch bites to entice you to come join us, because you all need lunch and need coffee sometime during the day. And so if I may, I'd like to give these to the city clerk. This is just a reminder. These are the postcards. Thank you very much. Hope to see you guys there.
Renee, thank you for coming and speaking to us and letting us know about new business in our community. So thank you much.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, Kendra, and I think it's Martin. Did I get that right? Okay, great. I wasn't sure of the handwriting. So please, again, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Kendra Martin, and I'm actually, I live up in Naples. And I have friends that have introduced me to Hayden. They live down here in Hayden, as well as I've been traveling to several of the cities and counties from Kootenai County all the way up to Boundary County. And I sent in a letter requesting a meeting with the City Council regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds. I was at a meeting last October where Sheriff Wheeler, our sheriff up there, rejected the funding for his department out of ARPA funds. And I hadn't ever heard of them before. And he said that his reasoning for rejecting them was because in the contract that binds the signer, which is a city or a county, to the federal funds, stipulated that you had to comply with all applicable federal regulation stipulations, and the new entry was executive orders. And it was the executive orders that he was concerned about. As I mentioned, I didn't know anything about ARPA funds. But what happened since October is that we have an entire task force of the public who has been actually reading the over 1,000 pages of documentation, including several very concerning executive orders. And we put them together in a presentation. Last week I was at Spirit Lake and I made a presentation there, and they made a decision not to entangle themselves with all the complications of the ARPA funds, and they decided to just send the money back. They didn't want to deal with all of that. And then 2 weeks prior, I was in Post Falls, where 3 of the council members voted against it. It's a complicated documentation that came not because counties or cities requested the funds, but because the funds were just magically appeared after the COVID experience that America had. So what I wanted to do was just ask if it would be possible for me and my team to come and literally just share with you what we found out in the documents, what we found out regarding the funding, and just make a presentation so that what we've been finding is a lot of the elected officials haven't read the full compass of the over 1,000 pages. And so with the team that came together around this document, we were able to actually make and articulate a presentation for people to actually see all the different facets of it. The most important one being the 5-page document right up front, which literally ties you to the other 995,000 or 995 pages, which is, it's more than that. We just had a new guidance and reporting document come out in February. Final rule came out in April, and they're still saying that they're going to change things. So we've been keeping up on that, and we just want to make ourselves accessible to council and county members. That's it.
Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you.
All right, we have one other person, Teresa Roth. You're up. Your name and address, please.
My name is Teresa Roth. I'm from 2011 West James Crow. As you know, I've spoken a few times before. I've been very active in the sort of the slow growth movement, and we're very much behind getting a council in here that could really make positive changes. The whole reason there's so many people here today and for the last 6 months is because we were very unhappy as a people with the comprehensive plan. And since you guys have all been elected, we're not getting to the issues that we need to get to because there's so much contention and bickering and drama. And I love you guys and I really want you to succeed, but I really want us to get back on track. And I can only make one positive suggestion, which is when you look at a lot of the conflict in the board, both before and after the election, a lot of it has to do with people writing articles to the CDA press. And every article that's been written by anybody from any side has caused a huge firestorm, huge drama, and it doesn't help the situation at Hayden. The citizens of Hayden don't even read the CDA press. The CDA press is written for and by the establishment of CDA. We are here because we don't want Hayden to turn into CDA, and we don't want you to use the CDA's mouthpiece to pollute the waters. And so I think it would be very helpful for everyone if we could just keep Hayden business out of the CDA press and restrain yourself from, voicing your opinions. My suggestion is you all have Facebook pages, blogs. If you have something to say to the city of Hayden, we'll do everything we can to forward your blog or poster or get the word out if there's something you need to say to us. But talking into the Coeur d'Alene mouthpiece has been very, very destructive. I have other concerns having to do with the division in the council and the division even among people of goodwill who all want slow growth. But I'm afraid that if I started talking about that, it would make things worse and not better. So I will not make my third point today, but I might later. Okay, so I think that's all. Thank you.
All right, Teresa, thank you. All right, we're going to go to item 3A, unfinished business.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Acting Mayor. Just in interest, I don't know how long 3A is going to be. If you want to, we could move 4A and B up and get those done. If you want to, just a suggestion.
Sure, yeah, if that's...
And then you say for last. so that maybe there's a couple folks that would like to get done and leave, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe everybody's here.
Yeah, we don't know how to predict sometimes the discussion. So if that's, do I need a motion to make that, or can I just make that change?
You can just make that change.
Just make the change.
Okay, I'll make the change.
Yeah.
That we now deal with item 4A, which is a zone code text amendment to amend Title 11-17E to add a second public hearing before City Council. So who will be present? Donna, there you are. I'm looking down at my paper. Thank you, Donna.
No problem. So, good evening. This is a public meeting to discuss a public hearing. I've been having fun with that for the last couple of weeks. So, the proposal is a zone text amendment. The zone map and/or zone text amendment code changed in March of 2020. And the request is to amend that code back so that zone maps and zone text, comprehensive plan maps and comprehensive text amendments would require 2 public hearings, one before the Planning and Zoning Commission and one with the City Council. And then all other processes would remain the same. So that's based on the perception that the public isn't being heard, or the public can only be heard at a City Council meeting, or the public is heard better at a City Council meeting. Public can participate today by email, writing, in person, on go-to meetings. All public comments become a part of the record, so any public comments that are made at the Planning and Zoning Commission all become a part of the minutes, all become part of the record that are then passed on today to the City Council. So they're all part of the record, no matter what format they came forward at a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And what's cool about today that wasn't available even when the code changed previously is that all the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are also available for review on YouTube. So you can even hear, you can watch the YouTube video and see the presentation of the public at Planning and Zoning even at that time as well. So the city strives to enable members of the public to have the ability to be a part of all land use decisions. We review public feedback, and it oftentimes can bring about positive outcomes when we hear comments from the public. Again, the public can comment by email, by letter, in person, through GoTo. Some people write well, and some people speak well, so we have all those avenues that enable the public to participate. More opportunities for sharing can be beneficial, so both public hearings could be beneficial. And all forms of input are valued by the staff, by Planning and Zoning, and by City Council. So just as a matter of process, the Planning and Zoning Commission is responsible to review the staff review the comments by the public and the agencies before the public comes in to present at a public hearing, and then review the record that's before them. They deliberate on comments received to date, including and during the public hearing testimony. They review all of that information. They make a written recommendation after their deliberation and their findings, and that's what's passed on to the City Council. So the council's responsibility is to take all of that information that they've heard up to that point in time, as well as have the opportunity to review the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on YouTube. And then the council can always comment on public comments that were received at the time of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting or public hearing as part of their deliberations. The council reviews all of that information in the record and makes the final decision based on the findings related to the standards of approval. They can do that today. Without a second public hearing, you can do all of that today. That's my phone. So based on direction from council and from workshops with Planning and Zoning and City Council, the request is to add in a second public hearing for the City Council We wouldn't add additional agency notice unless there was something drastically different between the first planning and zoning public hearing and city council's public hearing. But all of the notices would be required to go back out to the 300-foot radius. The legal notices would require to go out again, public service announcements, and the website would be posted. It'll add about a 30 to 30-day time difference between the current process and to add a second public hearing in order to meet those noticing requirements. So people always say it's a 15-day notice at the paper, but in order to make that happen, it takes about 18 to 21 days to get those notices into the paper. Paper's gone to a digital format on Mondays, so we really try to, and Saturdays, not everybody gets the paper, so we really try to notice only on Tuesdays through Fridays to hit the most amount of people that could actually see that. So that restricts and moves those calendar dates a bit, so it's important to note that. So then, upon closure of the public hearing and deliberations of the Planning and Zoning Commission at their public hearing to hear this code text amendment request, it was a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the code text amendment as proposed. That vote was 4 members of the commission were in favor and 1 was opposed. So the City Council may approve with modifications, or deny the proposed code text amendment for the Hayden City Code, 1117E amendment procedures.
Are you going to take some questions?
Sure.
Council members?
Nope.
Any? Nope. Councilmember White, any questions?
I was just wondering, why not do the second notice?
To the agencies? The agencies are bombarded by requests for comment, pretty much like everybody is. They don't have just the city of Hayden that they're answering those notification requests from. And if nothing is substantially different from the request that was before them, if the Planning and Zoning Commission isn't recommending something substantially different, we believe that they're most likely they're going to just say that their original comments stand, or we won't hear anything. And one thing I don't want to do is get to the point where they stop commenting because they're getting, overwhelmed with requests.
I have a question here. Sandy, Councilmember White, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, on that topic too, and it may just be perception, but it seems of late, what did we send, 17 out? Is that the number?
It depends on the area and depends on the request, but it can be anywhere between 17 and 24.
Okay. It just seems to me that we're fewer and fewer. Maybe there's just a real small group that seems to be responding of those 17 to 24. And so I guess in relationship to sending the second one out, for some reason, I'm kind of would like to find out why a number of agencies are not responding at all. It seems like of late in particular, but so as you say, it's either they're bombarded or whatever, so I can understand that.
I have a question, Donna.
Go ahead.
How much of an increase in cost is it for us to do the second meeting with all the notices and so forth? And it may depend, but
Yeah, it just
roughly.
depends on how many notifications you have, but you pretty much are gonna, right now we collect a $500 noticing deposit from the applicant who is bringing their project forward. Generally, that comes out to about anywhere between $250 and $350 in public noticing costs. So you're gonna double that.
So we pass that cost through to the applicant?
Do, but it will double their costs for that. As far as time goes for the staff, you're adding in time for the second public hearing, and you're adding the time that the applicants or the neighbors or the property owners, whoever's affected, the amount of calls and questions that we get from them. And it's important to note that when you've got a project, I'm just going to go big picture. So if you have an annexation, we'll just start at the top. If you have an annexation, you have 2 public hearings, you notice twice. They bring forward subdivision, and they're going to get notices for the subdivision. If you have a zone map or zone change, you're going to have 2 public hearings, and then they're going to get noticed, and if they decide to do a subdivision, they're going to get noticed for the subdivision. And what happens is you get the same kind of confusion from the public because they've been noticed so many times that they're like, what is this for? And how come we're doing this again? I thought we already talked about this. So we're all in favor of having public input, but they get just as confused the more times they get noticed. It does lead to confusion.
And then,
Not opposed to it, I'm just saying it can lead to confusion.
Right. I get that. Now, concerning what, respect to what Ed has brought up, I had a coffee with our sheriff, Bob Norris, with a specific question about, we as a city would like to get input from the sheriff's department on how this specific subdivision or land use issue that we're dealing with, we want your input. We get input from the fire department and from the airport and the other 20-some, departments or agencies. And I said, since I've been here, I don't know that I've seen one. And he said, well, the guy that did it dropped the ball. And yet, we want that kind of input. I asked him if we could maybe have it. And I know they're busy. I know there's, I'd rather have them going after the criminals than filling out paper, but that becomes valuable for us to know what our public safety people are thinking about any specific growth item. We need to know that. And so to answer your question, that's one answer that I got from Sheriff Norris. And that's all I have as far as, I think, and I understand that it becomes more complex to people or confusing, but I like the idea that the more input we get from the public, that the better it is for us. We get better government that way. That's my.
Just to comment on your statement about agencies, we go out and update our agency contact list about every 6 months to try to ensure that we're actually sending the agency notification requests to the appropriate person, especially with the number of folks that have retired from various positions over the course of the last several years. We've seen a lot of that movement. So we try to keep that as fresh a list as possible. Yeah, we try.
So currently we have a committee that's looking into public safety with how many deputies we should have, and I would hope that discussion might include, when we get feedback from the sheriff's department, I would hope that would be something that they could address. I'm not on that committee. I know Ed and Roger are, but that would be helpful. Okay, any other questions, or are we ready to, someone to propose a motion?
A motion to approve the, what do we have, a specific definition of it, but the second meeting in front of City Council, if that's not the complete zone text amendment to amend Title 11, Chapter 1, Section 7E, amendment procedures, all motion to approve.
I second that.
Great. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll make a comment or two here. And again, this has already been discussed probably numerous times. I know that I was getting a lot of feedback from community members related to the Planning Commission hearing versus the City Council meeting, and the ability of the people to actually give input at the hearings, whereas you cannot give input at the meetings. And perceived or not, reality or not, it was communicated to me many times that the people just feel that they want to speak to their elected officials and look them in the eye when they talk, and as the elected officials make the final approval on the issues that they do make the final approval. So that's primarily why I brought this forward back then, is input from the community for that second opportunity to look at those that they elect to make these decisions as we make the decisions.
Anybody on this side want to have any discussion yet? Hearing none. Abby, please, roll call.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, good, moving on. We're going to take up item 4B, which is PZE-22-0016, Daniels Zone Map Amendment, please. Hey, Zach, you're up.
In council, Planner Zach Trevino for the record. I'm presenting a request for a zone map amendment. This is a public meeting, and it was heard at public hearing earlier in April. The request is to change the zone of one parcel from agricultural to single-family residential. This parcel is developed with a residence and accessory structure. I'll show the aerial in a minute here. The structure is quite old. It was built originally in 1930, and the garage was added later. It's important to note that this agricultural zone parcel is non-conforming with regard to size. It's a little under 1 acre, 0.7 acres, and the required minimum lot size for the agricultural zone is 5 acres. So it's substantially smaller than the agricultural zone. And the request is a result of the current owner acquiring the property recently in December here. And the goal is to rezone that to enable more flexibility. In the narrative that they submitted, which is in the packet, they indicated an intent to subdivide that, but we have not received any request for that subdivision. So this is just to consider the zone map amendment. This parcel is located north of Orchard, a little west of Ramsey. You can see Ramsey here if you follow my mouse. And this green area is the agricultural zoned area. As you can see, this is somewhat of an island of agricultural zoning surrounded by mostly single-family residential. That's this yellow here. It's important to note that all of these lots that are agricultural are non-conforming with regard to size for the same reason I just described. They're conforming with regard to use, which means that the use that's allowed on this parcel, or the use that's established on this parcel, is allowed in that zone. You can have a single-family residence in the agricultural zone, and you can have a single-family residence in the single-family residential zone. So it's size that creates the nonconformity. It's also important to note, for some context, that south of Orchard, immediately south of the parcel, this larger parcel here, there's ongoing subdivision construction. That was rezoned from agricultural, or a portion of it was rezoned, the northern portion was rezoned from agricultural to single-family residential, and subsequently subdivision preliminary plat was approved, and it's going through the construction phase now. So that's just some context of the area. Looking at the aerial of the parcel, you can see that it's the residence is near the south, near Orchard Avenue, and one important thing to note is it's relatively narrow, 100 feet along Orchard Avenue as far as frontage. Because a lot of the public comments addressed it and it was discussed at the hearing, it's important to note that any future subdivision would have to be applied for, and based on the minimum lot size in the single-family residential zone, which is 8,250 square feet, one could create potentially 3 lots pending approval. There are standards of approval, so just because you meet minimum lot size doesn't mean it's going to be approved. But that is just some information about subdivision in this zone. But again, there was no concurrent request to subdivide. It's possible for an applicant to get it rezoned or not, and they could pursue subdivision if it were rezoned, or they may not pursue subdivision. It's unknown what an applicant might choose to do. So that's just an important disclaimer because of a lot of the confusion that I think there was surrounding the request. The commission did evaluate this according to these standards of approval, which I'll go through for the benefit of the public here. I know you're familiar with them. And they ultimately did recommend approval of the zone map amendment. First and foremost, they didn't believe that any additional studies or analysis were necessary at this time. If one were to pursue subdivision, there may be future analyses or studies that need to be done at that point, in addition to meeting all site plan standards. But at this point, they didn't recommend any additional steps. The applicant's narrative that was provided as part of the application was available online for the public to review and is in your staff packet. Identifies how they believe the zone map amendment is consistent with both health, safety, and general welfare, which is one thing that this standard of approval directly addresses, as well as the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. I'll get to it, well, I'll just go to it right now. The future land use map does designate this area as single-family residential. You can see that there's actually no agricultural designated in here on the future land use map. And the future land use map, for context, is just one component of the 2040 comprehensive plan. There are goals and policies, which I'll display in a second here. But what this means is that there's no need for the applicant to also request a comprehensive plan map amendment, because the zone map amendment request is consistent with what's already depicted on the future land use map. These are some goals that the comprehensive plan sets forth for your consideration that may be relevant to the proposal. I won't go into any one of them in great detail, but it is important to note that these are also in that comprehensive plan. So it's not just the future land use map, and the policies that are associated with the goals in the comprehensive plan go into a little more detail about what the city's vision is for the future of our neighborhoods. So that is where these are derived from. Just in general, they address things like facilities, can development be served, encouraging infill development rather than development at the fringes of the city, that sort of thing. But you know, these were included in your staff packet, and I encourage you to incorporate them into your decision making. The fourth standard of approval is related to the zoning. Clearly, this is a request to rezone the parcel, but it's important to look at things like, is a nonconformity being created? What would the effect be on the rezone? And so as far as use, as we discussed, the single family residential zone does allow for residences. It would be subject, if there are any future development proposed, to setback requirements and standard site development requirements. But it would be remedying the nonconformity with regard to size if it were rezoned, because again, the minimum lot size in the single family residential zone is 8,250 square feet. But again, that's the significant difference between these two zones is minimum lot size. There are several other differences with regard to use that you can establish, but predominantly they're both residential zones. I think one important thing to mention, and this was discussed at the public hearing, is that the agricultural zone is described as shown on the screen, and I'll read it. It provides for activity which generally occurs on the outskirts of Hayden, where large undeveloped lots are primarily used for farming and agricultural pursuits as defined herein. And so that is the current zoning. And one of the things to consider with regard to this standard of approval is, would this amendment better align with the intent of these zones or not? And so those are the four standards of approval that the Planning Commission considered. It's also important to note some infrastructure aspects of this. Now, regardless of the outcome of this request, there are certain things in our code that trigger the need for things like frontage improvements along Orchard Avenue. If one were to add, say, an accessory dwelling unit to a parcel, you would need to do those improvements. But it's important to note that if this were approved, that wouldn't in and of itself necessitate any changes to the parcel. Future subdivision may, but again, subdivision is not the only thing that would require changes. So access configuration will be evaluated at the time of future subdivision or future development, regardless of whether this is approved or not. Just getting to the agencies real quick here, we didn't receive any concern. Several agencies did respond stating they had no comment. Importantly, the fire district provided some general requirements that they typically provide for these sorts of requests. Any future development would need to meet their standards as well as the standards of other agencies. We did mail notices to 32 adjacent property owners. We received one public comment by the public comment deadline, but then we received 3 additional comments the day of the hearing. So those were read into the record and they're included in your packet. But we did not receive any testimony at the public hearing. This is just another aerial image. I'm going to show the street view in a second for some additional context. You can see that the area that's zoned single-family residential is largely developed with single-family residences on lots that reflect that minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet or larger. This is the parcel. This is relatively recent imagery of what it looks like today, this older residence and this detached garage back here. As you can see, the Orchard Avenue pavement ends and the lawn begins. So frontage improvements would be an aspect of future development, depending on the scope of that development. You can maintain an existing home without triggering those improvements, but basically any expansion of use or subdivision would require some improvements there. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval without any conditions, so they didn't believe that there was any need for further restraints on the zoning, such as through a zoning development agreement or other mechanism. These are the standards of approval that they considered and that are for your consideration today. And you have the opportunity to approve it with conditions, or deny this request. And I stand for any questions that you have.
I do. Zach, can you please go to the overhead again, the aerial?
Yeah,
And help me with my education, because I still get confused with a lot of this stuff.
absolutely.
Okay. Now, I understand that this is just for the zone change issue, for the subdivision or anything like that.
Correct.
But I've received input from people who are backed up on here, those homes, I'm assuming to the north there, and their concerns. Can it be subdivided without council approval?
If it were rezoned, it could not be subdivided under current zoning,
If approved, if approved as single family,
but there's, so when I say if it were rezoned, it could go through the minor subdivision process, which is preliminary plat. It's an administrative process that staff evaluates in accordance with the standards of approval. However, the city council needs to approve a final plat before that's recorded. So no public hearing before city council as far as a minor subdivision, but there is a point at which it comes in front of the council for final plat approval.
okay. Now, that being a narrow lot, and you talked about needing how many 20 feet frontage or whatever, what's the frontage at each? So that tells me that a road is most likely going to have to be run up one side or another, and will that qualify as frontage if a private road, say, is run up there?
Good question. So yes, there is a minimum frontage requirement for each lot. It's 20 feet. And you have to have that on either a public or private street. So you would have to have exactly what you said, either a private street running along one side in a separate tract that each lot fronted on, or you'd have to have an arrangement where you had like flag lots where the lot is configured such that it has frontage, the minimum frontage along Orchard Avenue.
And that would be what, a 24-foot road? Am I correct in that?
For road surface. And there's a table here that I'll display related to that, just for the benefit of the public here, that sets forth what a private street would look like in comparison to, say, a public road. For public roads, this doesn't give a lot of information, but they're wider. Our standard drawing for public roads requires a much wider road surface, but for private streets, it's 24 feet. Plus the sidewalk swale in addition to landscaping and setbacks. And it's important to note that that private street would require city council approval. So if they were to propose a private street as opposed to, say, a common driveway with flag lots, then that would require city council approval pursuant to our
Would it
code.
also require that private street sidewalk and swale between can we go back to the picture, I guess?
Yes.
What I'm imagining here is I don't know, is that the homes will be up along, let's just say, for example, the east side here, and the street will run up the west side. And will there be a road, a sidewalk, a swale, and then the setbacks and all that to fit the structures in?
Councilmember DePriest, it's all hypothetical. It's all hypothetical. I mean, I don't mean to butt in. I mean, I understand where you're trying to go there, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not, it's a zone map amendment. They're requesting it to go to R1, and until we have a particular design in front of us, or they come forward at a pre-development meeting and work through possible scenarios, we could talk hypotheticals all day on how this could get possibly developed. They are good questions, absolutely. But But what I was going with this is that, this owner might say, or we could hypothetically say how this could all develop, but they might stay in this house forever as R1 and never subdivide it, or they might sell it tomorrow and whatever they presented here today isn't going to be valid for tomorrow.
What I'm trying to get at here is the concerns that have been brought to me by the surrounding people and the like, is just some of the potential hypothetical situations they may be looking at, but also to hopefully make them aware of what it will need to look like, what will need to be met. And I think the fire issue, which seemed to come up before, it's 300 feet deep. Part of that would need to be a turnaround of some kind within that type of thing, which would also affect the end product, if you want to put it that way. And I agree with you, it's all hypothetical, and this is just, say, zone. But as I said, I'm really trying to get some information out there for the people who live around it so that they can maybe get an understanding of what the reality might be.
And any subdivision or future subdivision of this property, all of the same people would be noticed as were noticed for this zone map amendment. So they would totally get that opportunity to present concerns that they have related to how this would be developed if they should bring a subdivision forward.
Okay. Well, I think that's really answered. I just want to make sure that, the fire and all those other standards kind of get a hypothetical visual of what might happen there. So thank you.
Yeah, and as going off of that, if they were to request it, we would send these out to public agencies again. We did not ask the public agencies to comment on a subdivision, so they may not have provided the comments that they would if a subdivision were proposed, in which case we'd send it out to them again, send it out to the public, and we'd get that feedback specific to that proposal.
Thank you. Done.
Any other questions for Zach?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Hi, Zach. I was just looking at the notice of public hearing letter that you sent to me earlier. Thank you very much for sending that to me. I was noticing that on the letter, that the information given to the neighbors was the request is for the property's zoning designation to change from agriculture to single-family residential. This would cause the parcel's zoning designation to be consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map designation of the property as single-family residential. And then there's given some charts and maps like we're seeing here. I don't see on here like an explanation of what can be built on agriculture and what can be built on single family. So my concern is that the neighbors may not have understood what's going to happen or what could happen with that property. And then in their letters, they're saying, like, let me read one of the letters. It's impossible for me to describe how strongly I oppose subdividing this lot. The letter that came to my house said nothing about the desire to put two houses on that lot, which I find extremely dishonest. Single-family residential is what the rezoning requests, and I'm not opposed to that change. So they're not opposed to the single-family residential, but they're opposed to two houses on it. So that just shows me they didn't understand what's going on or what the implications are. So, yeah, that's just one of my concerns here. How can we give people more information in future letters?
Good question.
Yeah.
And
I know that doesn't have anything to do with the decision tonight, but.
it very much does. If it's a concern,
Yeah.
I want to address it.
So-
And
So that, and I think that also speaks to the fact that we only got 4 letters back. I think we would have gotten more.
Councilmember White?
Yes, ma'am.
So in that same legal notice, it points folks that read, or that notice that was sent to whoever, it points them to the city's website. The city's website has the same staff review that's in your packet. So basically, all of that more information that you're looking for them to have available to them is on the city's website at the same time that the notices are sent.
Okay.
And, it's also important to note that We want to provide full information and give people the opportunity to ask questions if they have them, as well as, of course, participate in the hearing and provide testimony. But we also want to make sure that we're restricting the notice to the request so as not to create confusion in the opposite direction. So because the property owner did note in the narrative that they were interested in subdividing, the staff report went into that. It had the narrative attached, and it definitely included things like the setback standards and the differences between the two zones. However, they didn't submit a subdivision request as part of this, and they certainly may not. You know, if plans change, even if it were rezoned, you can imagine it doesn't develop for years, or it's sold and someone else does something different in line with the zoning. There's really no predicting what might happen. And so we didn't want to speculate and give people the impression that they were being asked for comment on a subdivision request as well. And so what we would want people to do if they have confusion about what a request entails is definitely reach out. We provide our contact information on the notice as well, so that we can answer questions and give more detail as needed. And then also direct people to the staff report if they want a written document that kind of encapsulates more detail.
Are we good on questions? Okay, Zach, thank you very much. So I'm looking for a motion on 4B, action item PZE-22-011-0016, Daniels Zone Map Amendment. Would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we deny the request based on the fact that all of the letters coming in were against it, and this would cause a postage stamp kind of situation in that neighborhood where one property is different than the others next to it.
We have a second on the motion. Hearing no second, would someone else like to make a motion?
I'll do it. This is about a zone change, and from everything that I can see, the standards of approval and the criteria have been met, and has happened so often, and continues to happen. And yes, it's that time where our community is and what's happening. Although many of us at the time battle with the issues that we're facing, the bottom line is that it comes down to what is stated in the code and what the rights of the current owner are. So at this point in time, just regarding the zone change issue, I'm going to motion to approve PZE 22-0016 Daniel Zone Map Amendment.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Councilmember White.
I would just like to read an excerpt from the People's Comprehensive Plan here on property rights. And it says, at the same time, the city recognizes that no land exists solely unto itself, depending in substantial degree upon the public facilities in relationship to other privately held lands for value and utility. The city believes that policy choices should be made in order to maximize the options available to private property owners while protecting the public interest in clean air, clean water, and avoidance of nuisance factors that diminish the quality of life. And I just, I believe that the neighbors feel like the place they chose to live and spend their lives in, that the quality of life to them would be diminished by this change. So that's one of the reasons I would vote to deny it.
Okay, I'd like to make a comment that based on we're not considering a project, building project. We're considering a zone change. And there's a lot of hypotheticals that we don't know what they're going to do with it. Like someone said, they could just want to be in compliance, which is possible with a residential property on agricultural land. We don't know where that's going. I don't know, because I don't know all the ins and outs of how you would develop a long, narrow property and have the setbacks and streets and all that. I don't even know it's possible, but that's not our decision tonight. The decision is whether the applicant, we should grant them a zone change from agriculture to residential. That's purely our decision, and so therefore, I'm ready to vote, and unless there's any other discussion, I would like to have a roll call, please.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
All right. Okay, we have next item up on the agenda, which is unfinished business. Item 3A, approval of process for mayor appointment, continued discussion. So what our goal here is to move forward with that process and also, with a drum roll, release the names of the applicants that want to be mayor of Hayden. So I don't have the names, so who has them?
I have them. I have the applications as well. So as you recall, in the last meeting, the council gave direction. You did agree on to put out a notice to take requests for mayoral candidates. And so we did that. It closed last night at 5 o'clock, and we received 5 applications for you to consider. And so one thing in the last meeting we didn't get to was working through the process. And so if you would like to, from the council, we followed your direction. We kept that confidential. It's now closed. We think that we should release the names, but we wanted to make sure that the council was okay with that. And if so, we can release the names. And then I think we also need to discuss process.
So with, anything else?
No, I think that was perfectly stated.
Great, thank you. So what I'd like to do is first entertain a motion that we disclose the 5 names and who they are. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none? Abby, roll call, we're moving on. Good.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes. So,
I'll read this, and I also asked Abby to prepare a copy so that you had the names as well, in case there's somebody you don't know. So we received, like I said, 5, Nancy Lowry, Alan Davis, Roger Satterfield, Scott Forsell, and Ian Cosby.
okay, right.
Can you read that one more time?
Sure. Nancy Lowry, Alan Davis, Roger Satterfield, Scott Forsell, and Ian Cosby.
Can I ask, Abby, do you have those copies? Thank you.
And this is just a copy of the list of the names. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
you bet.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. You got 5, good. So with moving on, seeing that we don't have 50 or 25 or 30, I think what I'd like to do is move on to, we have a flow chart here, and I'm going to make a motion that we skip the middle part of this, which is some group or the council look at the list and then select which would be interviewed. Since we only have 5, my motion is that we would allow all 5 to move forward to the interview process at a special meeting with something we can determine with a date from the council. So my motion, again, without selecting the date, is that we just take these 5 names, we approve them to move on to the interview process, which would happen hopefully within the next 2 weeks.
I second that.
Discussion.
Yep. Regarding the interview process, I'm going to assume, I hate using that word, that applicants are not permitted to participate in the interview process for themselves, let alone other applicants. Is correct or not?
Would be my suggestion, but it's your process.
Oh. So okay, I think I understand what you're saying. I think that is a decision that we need to make before we jump forward, because as I've indicated previously, and I'm going to request that I be allowed to finish this statement here regarding the position that I have related to this.
I want to ask a question. Are you going to be reading private emails?
No, I'm not.
That
Nope.
were brought up in an executive session?
Well, not going to happen.
That cannot be released and the
Not
information
gonna,
contained
not
within
going to
that
happen.
executive
I'm going to
session.
read my statement
I just
regarding
wanna
my position.
Let me ask the question. Are you going to release any please?
It's really important you speak one at a time for the recording and potential future transcription of this meeting, so please don't
Okay, so I'll ask
speak
the
over top of
question.
each other. Thank you.
The question for Ed, Councilmember DePriest, are you going to be identifying any issue that was discussed within executive session that you should not do?
And not in this statement, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. There was a letter in the Coeur d'Alene Press recently directed at this mayoral selection issue, and it was directed at a bias. And I need to clarify my position related to my participation if Councilman Satterfield is in the pool of applicants. My position is not based on a bias of a protected group, as was mentioned and was the focus of that letter. So if that individual wrote the letter, I hope that clarifies that. My position is based on personal animosity, not the traditional focus or form of bias. My position is based on my personal observation and witnessing many times what I see as a personal animosity, which I believe prevents every applicant from receiving the exact same fair and equal consideration by every individual tasked with the evaluation of applicants. I have been present many times and have seen the animosity between the two individuals involved. I have read emails, one sent by one individual to a citizen and another to Councilman Satterfield, which I feel reinforce that animosity. This is not about a protected class. It is about two individuals with a history of an antagonistic relationship, which I believe prevents one who will be tasked with fair and equal evaluation of the other from giving the other that fair and equal consideration. From my firsthand experience and observation of the interaction between the two individuals, I don't believe that one can set aside personal feelings about the other. The evaluation of a prospective mayor should not bring personal issues into the process. And from my firsthand knowledge of the situation, I don't have confidence that that can happen. Personally, I'm going to look for the following as primary characteristics that I feel important. Does the candidate have experience and skills to run a council meeting? Does the candidate have the ability to work with and have the confidence of the city staff? Does the candidate have the experience and or ability to work with, recruit, and have the confidence of the business community? Let me again clarify where I stand, because I believe there's some misconception here. I am not married to Councilmember Satterfield as related to this situation. If someone who I feel is a better qualified candidate applies, then I will support that person based on their qualifications. My concern is not about the person, it is about the process. And I don't want to participate in what I believe in my heart is a tainted process. If Councilman Satterfield is in the pool of applicants, I will not participate because I think that the personal animosity between the two parties taints the process. If, however, for some reason, Councilman Satterfield determines that he will not participate in the process, then I will participate in the process. Thank you.
So my question to you is that, is Roger Satterfield's name on the list of applicants?
It looks like it is.
So does that mean that you're not going to participate in the process?
To be honest with you, will not be able to determine that, as I just said, until probably the day of the interviews, if Councilman Satterfield at that time is still in the pool.
So your reaction is totally based on what he does? Is that correct?
It's based on, as I just read,
I just want to understand, because we have to put a process together. And
I would say
we're
this.
trying to do that in an efficient manner, and then you're putting conditions on what you want to do. I just want to know where you're at. Are you in or out?
I would suggest that we go ahead and move forward with the process, and I'm just making a notice that if at the point in time the interviews come about, if Councilmember Satterfield is still in the process, for the reasons I stated, I will not participate.
But today, I understand he is in the process, so you're in.
What do you mean, so I'm in?
Well, you said
If right now I am for moving forward and developing a process.
Well, can I
Okay.
ask a question?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. So if we get to the point, let's say you establish a process and we get to interviews, and Councilman Satterfield's still in the running, you would recuse yourself from participating with him. You would recuse yourself from participating and considering him because you're concerned he can't receive fair treatment. Here's my issue. Then Councilman Satterfield can't vote for himself, as we've identified before, so we can't seat a quorum for consideration of Councilman Satterfield at that point, which means we can't provide the exact same process for every applicant. From just a structural perspective, that's what I'm concerned about.
So if I'm hearing it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong,
It was a question on my part.
that's basically Ed is saying, I don't want the council to select the next mayor.
No, so you just don't speak for me, please.
Well, but you're saying you don't want to participate if Roger is in, and what she's saying that it takes us out of the hands of us deciding, so that means you want it to move on to the governor to select. Is that true or false?
Well, if that's what it comes down to at that point in time, yes,
Okay, so
for the reasons so stated.
I consider that a roadblock in the process.
Well, it is where I stand regarding it. I'm not going to participate in a process that over the past year and historically, even past council, if you look at the past meetings, there's animosity. And as
Have you ever watched Congress?
that's right. And as yeah, and seeing you laugh at it. I don't want to be part of the laughing stock. I am not going to not jeopardize. I'm not going to prostitute my principles, shall we say, because to meet a need that I don't believe in. I've seen it. I don't believe that it's a fair, as Council Jovic said, fair and equal for everybody, without personal issues coming into the picture. That's my personal position, my personal belief. I don't feel that I can participate in that just to go along to get along.
Okay, so my motion is that we move forward with interviews. We have 5 applicants, and so I'm seeking a second on it. We have a second, so we had any more discussion?
Yes, lots. I feel that this should be, all 5 applicants should be passed on to the governor. I know we have to go through court to do that, but I'm reasonably sure that when the emails and the attack on my family has been presented to a judge from another council member, that that judge will agree there is bias and prejudice. And, you know, for you folks in the audience, how do you feel about it when your family gets attacked and it's made personal? That's what's happened here. And I'm not going to divulge at this time what was in those emails, but there's more than just the emails. So therefore, I strongly believe this should be sent to the governor because it's the only fair process. Normally, I would like to see council pick because we're local. But when there is such extreme bias and prejudice, and when I feel it, I see it and have proof of it, How do I know the other 4 applicants won't receive the same treatment? Therefore, again, the only fair process I see is going to the governor.
I'd like to add that I've asked for those emails from her legal counsel, and she's refused to give them to me, for the record. I
That
found
is
that out
correct.
today.
I have an ethical obligation to the entity, which is the best interest of the city. It is not to any one of you individually. It is to the entire city and all of you collectively. The emails that I have in my possession that came to me directly from sources have not been released. That is true.
And some of those are third party that are not part of the council. And that becomes an issue regarding legal counsel and the city and the obligation of the legal counsel to provide documentation on their request. So there's a concern about that. So here we are. I want to move forward with the 5.
I think for the record, we need to clarify, Council President Roeder, you are not an attorney. And when you begin practicing law without a license, that's problematic. And I have not received a request from an attorney representing any one of you individually to have a meet and confer regarding production of these emails. So I want to be clear on my response to the request to produce the emails from the ones that are solely in my possession, is that if I produce to one council member, I need to produce to all. And it was my opinion at that time, that the request was made, that was not in the best interest of the city. I am perfectly happy to take direction from this entire council in a public meeting to produce the emails if that's the direction that they give me as a council, but not as one person individually making a demand.
I have a question.
Well, I'd like to, I'm going to take
I'd like to make a comment as well.
Yeah, my thought is that as acting mayor, I've asked our legal counsel to produce documentation that's claimed to exist, and I'd like to see it. There's been different emails. I have no idea where they're, who and what's being said. So that's a concern that I have as acting mayor.
Well, you should know they're from you.
Well, are there others, Roger?
Maybe. I wouldn't know about that. I only know about the emails that I've received.
I would like to make a
I need to
comment.
ask a question.
Okay, Sandy, Councilmember White, please.
Okay. I would like to read Idaho Statute, Title 50, Municipal
Again, I would like to be really clear, in interpreting Idaho code, none of you are attorneys.
I'm just reading
Be
it,
careful.
I'm not interpreting.
Totally fine.
Okay, thank you. Vacancy in office of mayor. In case of a temporary vacancy in the office of mayor due to absence or disability, the president of the council shall exercise the office of mayor during such disability or temporary absence and until the mayor shall return. When a vacancy occurs in the office of mayor by reason of death, resignation, or permanent disability, the city council shall fill the vacancy from within or without the council as may be deemed in the best interests of the city, which appointee shall serve until the next general city election, at which election a mayor shall be elected for the full 4-year term. So upon reading that, I would just like to say that I believe this responsibility should stay within our council, that we have a responsibility to the citizens to do what we've been elected to do, and put aside our personal biases and look at these applications that have come in good faith by good citizens here, and we should move ahead in that way.
Any more discussion before we vote?
Yes, I have a question, seeing as you asked me a question related to the emails. And this is about transparency. We hear that word a lot, transparency, for the public, for knowledge and know what's going on. If there is nothing inappropriate in those emails, or that would validate my reason for taking the position that I'm taking, my concern is, what is the fear that I sense, problem with reading the portions of those emails that do not divulge executive session content.
But that was brought up in executive session, so you'd be violating that.
Not the content of the emails that are not
Have you
specific.
seen all the emails?
I've seen the ones that I've seen 2 of them.
I did not
That's more
produce
than
anything.
I've heard about, so there's more. Now we have 2. Okay? So let's move on. I'd like to take, unless there's any other discussion, I'd like to take a roll call vote.
Abby, would you read back the motion, please?
Yeah.
Back to it, sorry. Okay, so I have a motion to allow all 5 candidates to move forward to the interview process during a special meeting to be held within the next 2 weeks. Motion by Council President Roeder, seconded by Councilmember White.
Does everybody understand the motion? If so, let's take a roll call vote.
Councilmember DePriest,
Because I am for moving forward with the process, to at least get it to the interview process, I would vote yes to move forward to that extent.
Councilmember Satterfield,
No.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
and Council President Roeder.
Yes, I have a question whether, to legal counsel, whether Councilmember Satterfield can vote on a process where he will benefit personally?
He can only, no, he cannot. He will not be allowed to participate or vote once we get to the interview
But
and
the
application.
process, because it includes him as a applicant, he can vote on it?
He's only voting on just whether to move forward to interviews or not.
But it includes him to be interviewed.
If you would like for him to abstain from this particular vote and redo that vote, you certainly can request
I would
that to
request
happen.
that.
Sure. And probably we should have asked that question ahead of time, but you can ask him to abstain from voting on the process entirely. And then I just for clarification, so we'll go back and redo that vote again and have,
Can you quote us the Idaho statute that prohibits him from voting for himself?
I can't off the top of my
Can you
head.
give us in general what it
It's
says?
in Title 18, which is the criminal code. How's that?
Which means that he cannot
So
vote
he
for
can't-
something that he would personally benefit from?
He cannot, may I?
Oh, yeah, I'm asking.
Yes, so no council member can vote during a process that would financially benefit them in any way. That's the nature of the criminal statute.
So it is a criminal statute?
It is a criminal statute.
All right, thank you.
But this was not a vote to benefit him financially. But if you want to request that he was abstain, you can make that request.
You know, based on that, because it gives the potential that he could benefit financially, personally, and there's a weird name, it starts with a P, for personal gain in that statute.
Pecuniary.
Yeah, there it is, that's a tough one. All right, thank you. So that's the question is
But
whether...
before you revote, can I ask one more question? Because I don't have a real good clarification from Councilman DePriest. If we go forward to these interviews and all 5 applicants are there, do you intend at that point then to recuse yourself?
Yes.
Okay. I think the public needs to know that's your
Yes.
intent, because we could end up right back in this same spot, and I think it's better for you to flesh that out now.
Well, and
But it's your process.
Right, we need to move forward the process, and if Ed becomes a roadblock, he becomes a roadblock, and taking it away from the...
Oh,
from the
give me a
voter.
break. Give me a break. Move on.
Yeah.
But hey, hold on.
That's your own perception and your own interpretation, and your choice of words is often so inflammatory, it's ridiculous.
Hey, you're out of order. You're out of order. And my point is that you intend to become a roadblock to the process where they...
Not a roadblock. There are steps to follow should I decide to recuse. It's listed what
You got to
happens
figure it out
next.
with Roger what you're going to do.
No, they can't have discussions outside of this room.
Absolutely
It's part of the
not.
emails.
Don't you even
Absolutely
start
not.
that.
So,
That's an accusation that is
Slander,
totally
libel, whatever you want to call it.
unfounded.
you've had no discussion
touched
on...
You know, and for you to try...
Okay, time out.
For you to try and silence a city councilman for making statements, who the heck do you think you are? Well, that's right, last time you made rulings. Rulings are usually made by kings.
If that's all you.
Yeah, so now you're trying to suppress.
Let's calm
You
down.
want to suppress?
Hey, Roger, no more. We're going to go.
Well, now you're going to suppress anything I want to say.
Can I just
I want to take a
please
vote on this.
time out?
Yes.
Time out, thank you.
Just want to move forward.
Yeah.
I just want
Move
to be.
forward with map process.
We need to flesh this out a little bit, because if council, I want you all to understand what's going to happen. Let's play the hypothetical game for a minute. If you approve moving towards the interviews, and you get to that stage, and then Councilman DePriest recuses himself because at that point, Councilman Roger Satterfield is still a candidate, and whatever has transpired regarding that, you've lost all that time from now until then. So I just want you to really understand the implications of all of this discussion and all of these decisions. You lose that period of time. And then the question becomes, where does this issue of roadblock versus bias or perceived bias get played out? Well, it's going to get played out in a court of law. I don't know that that's the best interest for the city either. So I just want to be really clear that all of these decisions at this stage have real consequences to the city. And every day that we don't have a mayor, we don't have a tiebreaker, this continues, and these poor people have a hard time making it through their day to get their job done. So I just want to make sure everybody we really talk about the ramifications of all of these discussions and consequences.
That's why I want to move forward. I'd like to take the roll call vote on
Yes.
on the
I think
interview.
Councilwoman White has
Yes.
a question.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the vote the way it was, but I would like, what if we were to redact the names of the applicants and just look at the applications and the qualifications as we move forward?
That's a good system.
I think the motion was to interview everybody, not.
Right.
Yeah.
We can, yeah, but that's where we're at. I want to move this forward. So like our legal counsel said, we want to move forward, and I'd like to do that. So let's take a roll call vote, please.
Are you making a formal request that Councilman Satterfield abstain from voting on this?
Oh, yes.
Councilman Satterfield, do you wish to abstain or do you wish to vote?
Could you speak louder and repeat that, please?
I'm sure. Do you wish to abstain based on the concern that this vote in and of itself might implicate a pecuniary benefit for you at some point in the future?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So now we can move on. All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember DePriest.
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield. You're abstaining. Councilmember White.
Would you restate what we're voting on?
You are redoing the roll call vote for the motion to allow all 5 candidates to move forward to the interview process during a special meeting that will be held within the next 2 weeks, which was made by Council President Roeder and seconded by Councilmember White.
Yes.
And Council President Roeder.
Yes. So motion passes. The next item I'd like to
Go ahead.
work on would be picking a date for the interviews.
Well, I think before that, you need to talk about dissemination of the applications, to whom and who not.
Okay.
Yes, we have applications, and then also after that, we need some direction and talk about questions, because there was discussion about having, and really, we want to have input from council, but again, if you discuss what the questions are here, then all candidates will know what those questions are. That's what you want, you can. I think we talked a little bit, we could, if you want, we can have an executive session to discuss what the questions are so that they're.
Without Councilman Satterfield there?
Yeah, without Councilman Satterfield. So there's some options there. So there's a couple things, date, questions, and applications. Who will receive them, so. The date, how far out did you say you want to, I mean, just.
The sooner the better. And I know this is a staffing question too, and when we can get together on it, but sooner the better.
And you want it as a special meeting, not tied on with our next council meeting on the 10th?
I think that would be good.
Well, we canceled P&Z on the 2nd.
On the 2nd?
Yeah, because we canceled P&Z already, so they could do it that night.
Okay. So that's about a week out? May 2nd, about a week out?
Yes, but it's okay.
Oh, that's right, you're gone. John can step in for you.
Is there a planning commission meeting that night?
It's been canceled.
It's canceled.
Okay.
So May 2nd, that's a Monday night. It's about a week away. Is that adequate time for you?
Sooner the better. Yep. For me.
Yeah.
What time?
Sandy, that's up to you since Roger can't participate.
What day we're talking about?
May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd. So a week from yesterday.
That's fine.
Just do 5 o'clock.
How about a time?
5 o'clock? Our normal meeting time?
Okay.
So it's a special meeting. So we'll need a vote on that. Special, May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd at 5 PM here for
Candidate
interviews,
forum.
Candidate forum interviews.
Candidate forum. Sounds good. So that's our motion, but we need somebody to make that. I'll make that motion. As Brett has stated, we need a second, please.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Abstain.
Just have him abstain from all of this.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roeder?
Yes. Okay, so help me, Brett, with what else we need to determine tonight for the candidate forum. Probably, I would actually like to ask Councilmember White. She had a description on how these county commissioners selected Panhandle
Yeah, the
Health.
Panhandle Health.
And where they had to appoint somebody to Panhandle Health Board. So if you could describe that method, I'd like us to think about that then.
Yeah, I would need to discuss it with the commissioners again to confirm exactly what they did. But I was present in the interview process. They had applicants come in one at a time, and they asked them questions. They each had asked the same questions to each applicant. And then they went in, I believe they went into special session and voted.
And voted?
I believe so, but I would need to confirm that with the,
And I think what you described to me was that each applicant would have 20 minutes before the county
they were
commissioners.
timed as they came in. They had
And
an
as they came
appointment.
in, and that would be open to the public, so the public could hear.
Can I ask a question here? Did I understand this correctly, that you had discussion with Council Member White regarding the process of asking these, of the questioning?
She made a suggestion, and that's why I let her speak tonight about it.
Did you make the suggestion up here, or where was that suggestion made? Where was that communication?
I talked to her
About the process?
about how Panhandle Health did it, because
But
they're,
about this process?
and also I've described, when I sat on the KCRCC, we had to select a sheriff, which was then Rocky Watson, because the previous sheriff, Pierce Clegg's wife's health deteriorated. He had to retire. And so the process was that the whole committee listened to the candidates at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. And so she made a suggestion that we possibly do that. So that was the suggestion.
Fine, just curious.
We could also look at North Idaho College and how they've done it. They've had
Sure.
an application process recently. Oh, yeah. No?
They had 50-some applicants, I think, for their trustees.
Yeah, that's upcoming.
We don't have that. So,
And I don't think you have enough time between now and next Monday to have another public meeting to solidify what your process is going to be, so you need to do that tonight.
okay, so then let's take a piece of that. And my motion would be that we give each candidate 20 minutes of an interview time before the public, and that questions can be asked of them by the council.
And that each applicant will be asked the same
questions.
And who and how are we going to determine those?
That's
Well,
next.
That's next.
That's
Okay.
next.
Yeah.
So that's my motion.
I'm sorry, what was your motion again?
My motion is that the interview process, which would take place next on Monday, the 2nd, May 2nd, is that we would give each of the 5 applicants 20 minutes, that we would ask the same question of all the candidates, all the applicants, and that would be the question and answer session before the public, so they can hear what the answers are.
Okay. And then would we do maybe an executive session to talk about it and then a public vote? Or something like that.
Not a public vote.
Yeah, you can't make a decision in executive session, so you have to come back out. in
Oh,
a
yeah, I
regular
thought you meant the
session.
public was going to vote on it.
No, no.
Oh, no.
We will vote in public.
Yeah, okay.
But have an executive session to discuss. Or, no, we can just do it all in public, never mind.
Sure. That's up.
That sounds good. Let's be transparent. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to, with what you presented, just to throw out a couple things. So you could have all the candidates come at the same time, and then you ask the same question, and you go in order, and they answer it, and you go to the next question. So they all are hearing one will be able to hear, and you can alternate, the person who starts. Or you can do it like what you're talking about. That's a typical like job interview where that person comes in, they're here, they sit in front of you. Yeah, they have a time slot, they come. We would ask them, it's public information, then you risk the idea and that the first candidate, you're asking the same questions, the last candidate knows the questions ahead of time and prepares a little bit. So you could do either. I'm giving you something to think about.
Can you say that first one again?
That's where maybe we set up, 2 tables and you have all the candidates sit right here and then the public sits back there. And then you have the questions and you're asking them in a different order, meaning like this person down here starts with the first question, then the next person. That way, because the person at the end has a little bit longer to think about their answer, right?
That's more of a panelist.
Yeah, something like that. And then once you're all done with all the questions, then you could either discuss it amongst yourselves in public. I guess you could go in executive session to talk about it and then come out and vote. Any vote would need to be out here. So it gives you some things to maybe think about.
So let's take the first part of that. Do we want to do where all 5 applicants are seated and they are asked the same question, or do we want to do it with separate applicants? So that's going to be the first thing we need to consider. Any thoughts?
I don't mind what Brett just suggested with the panelists being together and then alternating who gets the question first.
So go from one end and go
Yeah,
back?
but alternate who gets the
Right.
question first, so it evens the.
Okay.
I prefer the job interview type thing because, as Brett also said, when you have a panel, I like to see people think on their feet without having knowledge ahead of time. And there are numerous, and I think we're going to need more than 20 minutes because who knows how long the answers are going to be, and for people to answer completely. And I know I already have a bank of questions that I'm ready to submit for consideration. And this is too important to not take a lengthy period of time to get full and complete answers and have a bank of questions that fully I hate to use this word, vets the knowledge of the individual applying. And so my preference is the time slot, one at a time, so that people don't have that opportunity to think about, the question as it works its way down the line.
Well, I like the idea of individuals and asking them questions. So I would be more in liking to what Ed suggests.
I would be comfortable with that, too.
Okay, so let's,
But it would still be open to the public.
correct.
To watch the
Yeah, now we're just deciding whether we should do it all 5 at a time or individually.
individual, that's fine.
So that would be the motion if someone wants to make that motion.
I do have a motion on the floor that made by Council President Roeder that there for 20-minute interview time slots for each candidate to answer questions by the council.
Okay.
I would suggest, as Councilmember DePriest mentions, 20 minutes is not enough.
Okay.
I would suggest at least 30 minutes.
With the ability to even move on. Instead of a time frame, we need to take as much time to get all of the questions asked.
You need to give every applicant the same amount of time.
Okay, oh, you have to set a time.
You need to give every applicant the exact same experience.
And if the process moves faster, let's say we say 45 minutes, just say, and one takes 30, another takes 20, another takes 45, as long as we allow for that maximum time at 45, would that be okay? Regardless of how long it took each one to move through the process?
Yeah, if you have somebody who finishes less than 45 minutes, that's okay. You need to just allot the same amount of time for each of them.
Right, but I think it's very important to allow however many questions we're going to ask to be completely and fully answered. And some people might take 30 seconds and some people might take 5 minutes on an answer. So I'm concerned that we allow more time so we aren't going, oh, time's up, we only have 7 of the 10 questions or whatever it is.
Well, we're going to be looking at their applications and their resume. We'll have other information. I would make a recommendation we hold it at 30 minutes because that's 2.5 hours without a break.
Right.
And I think that's enough time.
And you need to allow some time after that to discuss it, so.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I think 30 minutes is good, and I think they'll hear that. One of the things, as interviewers, we do as well is, if a candidate starts to go on, we'll say, we have a certain amount of questions to go through, and this is your time. And so use it judiciously.
As occurred in some of these forums, however many questions we come up with, do we possibly want to consider saying, we have X number of questions, 10 questions, 3 minutes each, that type of thing? Is that a
What
possibility?
about 3 questions each?
I was just going to suggest that, so perfect. Yeah, I was thinking.
Questions total to the?
Each.
3 questions, if you have 9 questions that you solidify as the bank of questions, you each would ask 3.
Right.
You just divide them up.
9 total, not 3 total.
Correct.
And I think we received an email, we want, this is your process. We want your input, but I think the idea was having the attorney look at, because there are questions that are not going to be appropriate, that will be illegal or otherwise, that we want to review that. I also think having our HR look at that as well is helpful. As part of this, we look at categories or factors a lot of times when we do interviews and give categories, and we do a rating sheet where you can do a numeric rating sheet that will help you. You don't have to use that, particularly in this type of situation. You can go with a system where you just discuss and you come to a consensus that this is what we want to do and move forward and then vote. Or you can have a numeric type of sheet of paper that you go through and you mark these, come up with a number, and then you can compare your numbers and say, okay, my top candidate was this based on these factors. That's me. I'm just trying to give you some parameters if you want to go that way, or if you just want to ask the questions and then talk about them. When you're at this type of level, that's probably more common.
So going back to individual interviews, 30 minutes, are we feeling like that could be a motion?
Yes.
Can I ask for some clarification, Council President? Anticipating the public would like to participate or be present at those interviews, how, I anticipate I will get a lot of those phone calls on I would like to attend, or who, how can we attend? Are we limiting the number of people that can attend? We do have a capacity of 99 in this room by fire code.
Great question, Abby.
So I know that since we're doing them individually, we would probably not stream them live on YouTube or GoToMeeting.
Right.
Right, because they would potentially have access to each other's
Maybe
interview.
watching it for the questions, yeah. So I think what Abby,
Let's make it
I had one more
easy.
thing, but I anticipate.
Great question.
I think when we post the meeting, we can say that the room has a capacity of 99.
which will be, well, just how I anticipate if we do it one at a time, we'll probably put the candidate up here and not put people like all around them. But we can, I mean, a group like this would fit, and we could add a few more. If it's going to be, if you think like that we're going to have a lot more, then we may want to change the venue.
Right.
To potentially like a school or where, what, if it's.
A school's probably appropriate. I mean, we don't have a lot of, really, in the area community rooms. I would like to do it in here close. So I don't know how many people would show up to something.
And you aren't going to get an RSVP to your posting, are you?
I think we definitely could probably add, another 15 chairs or something like that in here, if you feel like that's enough.
The only way to know for sure is if we require people to register to attend.
Yeah, like we did during COVID.
I was just looking at the room right now, and if we have, we won't have the tables in front. Like, how many people are in here right now?
3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 25, plus us roughly.
Audience.
Yeah, 1, 4, 7, 8, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Okay, I would say if we limited it to 30 and we took first come, first serve, or
We could do that.
I don't know.
And we can record it. I mean,
Idea.
people could watch it later, but I think the idea of if it is live, that could give somebody an advantage.
So we're back to a motion. We don't have one right now.
Well,
on
you have a motion of 20 minutes. Do you want to amend that to 30?
30 minutes, individual interviews with the public.
Second.
Okay,
Is that, okay, that would be my motion. Second,
okay.
discussion? Okay, good, we're moving along. Roll call, please.
Council Member White,
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
And Council President Roeder.
Yes. All right, now, I think we need to address how we're going to come up with questions. That should be an item that we determine. Someone made a suggestion that council members come up with 3 questions each.
Oh, no, I think that was intended that at the end, maybe the list of questions gets reduced to 9, so it may start at 100. Who knows, if you all submit a bunch of questions. Gets reduced to 9, so that you each ask 3 questions to each applicant. 3 times 3 is 9. I saw you calculating.
I'm sensing the need possibly for a special meeting. How are we going to determine
I was gonna say,
submit them,
you're
and
gonna
then
get
how do
some
we?
duplicates.
Between now and next Monday.
Well,
We don't want them talking
Right.
outside this.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier.
So we could either do that, or we could have you submit your top questions, we could,
Pick your top 5 and submit them.
and submit them, and I could have
Submit them
HR,
to
Sean,
you,
And Brett.
you can say legally, we're okay.
we could put those together, and then for you 3,
And then we could just take one at a time of the questions we want that you approve, that we can ask our question of that candidate, and we can go back and forth with Councilmember White, myself, and Ed, and then keep going through that same process.
Right, and just for clarification, so Councilman Satterfield will not be included in the submission of questions or anything related to developing a list of questions.
Or can be present to hear the questions.
No, he will not be present. He will be an
Until he comes in for his
applicant
interview.
Right,
outside
right, right.
until he comes in
Right,
for
right.
his interview. Correct.
Now, here we go with the what-ifs. There is likely to be duplicate, 5, 5, 5, and 5, and you've got several of the same questions.
that's why I'm saying, I think if you submit like your top questions, then we know your interest, and I'm guessing there's going to be similar interest, and then we allow Sean, Vaughn, and I to take a shot at, here's the questions, and then we either need to meet, maybe in some kind of meetings, to make sure you'll approve that.
We could post
Or-
a meeting for 4:30 so that we could meet publicly without the applicants. It doesn't have to be executive session.
Okay.
And then finalize the list
Yeah.
of questions.
But we'll have it on like a sheet of like interviews, I think that we could probably provide, and then there might be something you want to modify, and then we could quickly do that then. And I think we want to look at them as well, because timing-wise, if they're really in-depth questions, 9 may be too many.
Right.
And so we can give you, and that's where I want to use Sean, our HR person. She puts these questions together all the time, and she'll be able to gauge a little bit, timing and things like that. But then come back to you to make sure that the questions are okay.
And Sean does a great job in the hiring process. I think that as elected officials, we have a little different point of view of things than an HR person. So that's why, it's important that we come up with those questions. That's my point. Okay, so the suggestion would be that we come up with, each council member comes up with 10 questions and submit them to Brett for consideration. Is that kind of where we're going?
10 or 5, I mean.
I was going to say 10 might be
No
too
more
many.
than 10. We'll just say no more than 10.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
I would suggest like a top 5, but
Yeah.
And then from that list, you will do what with?
Council President Voter, I have an idea.
Yes.
If we were to submit our top 5 questions, could Fonda and Brett look at them and just critique, like tell us, yes, this is a good question, someone else is already asking this, or something like that, and then we can look at our list again and pick our top questions based on our input.
But how do you have that communication without having a
Right.
Okay,
meetings?
that's true.
That type of thing.
Well, once you have those questions, you then make that selection. It comes back to us.
Right.
We can send you the proposed final cut list. You can respond individually to Brett without hitting reply all. So that we just have some input from you individually on your thoughts on our final list.
if all of you are good with that final list, you all give
It's
the
good.
thumbs up, then we're good, then we know we're okay. We can work to, like, I'm guessing we're going to get 2 or 3 at least the same from you, that on what we send you, we can put on there, we could maybe put just a designation that was requested by all 3 or
Yeah,
by
we
2
can
or something like
score.
that, so you know that.
Prioritize kind of.
Yeah, we can put maybe some,
If the same question is asked by all 3 of you, it's going to make the list, unless it's illegal.
so that sounds, but if you give us, like your top 5, we'll put together a draft, and I'll have Sean, Fonda, and I go through those, and then we'll get them out to you, and then you can give us,
And then whatever you do select, there will be equal amount of questions by.
We'll try to have a list so that you all
that
ask
would
the
be
same
fair.
number.
Our
Yeah,
script. Okay.
Is that, all right, so our motion is that each council member that is able to participate would submit 5 questions to be asked of the applicants, and that our legal counsel and Brett Boyer, our administrator, will then look at those questions and decide if there's duplicates, narrow it down. Then that list will come back to us. We ask that, we would want equal
Number of questions per
questions
council
for
person.
each applicant that we are able to ask, whatever that number is.
Right, yeah, whether it's 6 or 9.
Right. Okay, so we need to have those questions by when?
Tomorrow morning.
Tonight.
Thursday afternoon,
Actually, it would like Thursday morning.
Thursday morning?
Thursday morning? Okay, by Thursday morning, before noon.
Perfect.
Does that sound like?
Make that work.
Yep, fine.
I guess I'm developing that. I'll do that motion if you've got all that. And would you want to repeat so that
Abby,
we all
can you
know?
interpret that?
Yes.
Do you want to add, I mean, the other part of it is on the applications.
We'll
Can we
let's
do
do
it
that
separately?
next.
All right. A separate motion?
Yes.
All right.
So Abby's going to read what's on the table for consideration as a motion.
Okay, so I have that each council member that is allowed to that is able to participate in this process to submit 5 questions each to legal counsel Amanda and City Administrator Brett Boyer by Thursday before noon. And then they as in Fonda and Brett, will determine from those questions submitted an equal number of questions for each council member to ask to the candidates. And that will be sent to the council for
Review.
their records.
For final approval.
Final approval, but individual final
Yeah.
approval to you.
Consent. Yeah, don't use those words, yes.
But we will email those to you. Okay?
To Brett.
To Brett.
Brett.
Okay, Brett will receive those. Okay. And
How
then-
about for them to reply any objection they have to the comments, or to the questions?
Yeah, that's-
The final questions, okay, rather than approval. Just any
I like
objection.
that.
All right, so,
And I have that made by Council President Roder and no second yet.
Second.
all right.
Ready for a roll call, or you want more discussion?
Is there any more discussion? Anybody? Okay, roll call, please.
All right. Councilmember White?
Can you read it one more time?
I can't promise it's exact.
Okay.
Okay, so for each council member that is able to submit questions in this process, to submit 5 questions to legal counsel Fonda Jovic and City Administrator Brett Boyer by Thursday, this Thursday, as in 2 days from today, before noon. And then they, as in Fonda and Brett, will determine an equal number of questions from those submitted by the council for each council member to ask the candidates during the interview. The final list of questions that's from Fonda and Brett after their review will be sent to the council members participating in the process. And then the council members would submit any objection to that final list to Brett and Fonda.
To Brett and Fonda, or just Brett?
Either way.
Email me, I'm going to include Sean and Fonda as we put that together.
Okay.
Okay, are we understanding?
So we're mailing just to Brett?
Yes.
And then he will.
Email to me,
Yeah.
keep that as that focal point, and then I will.
Email everything to you and you'll pass it on.
Correct.
All right, good.
All right.
Okay.
If no one else has any discussion, then I'd like to have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, next, we have the actual applications. Those are a public record. We need direction from council to get those, of course, disseminated to the 3 of you who are ostensibly going to be the decision makers, but I need to make everyone aware they are a public record. So the other applicants can ask for a full set, the public could ask for a full set. I just want everyone to be aware they're a public record, so they'll be copied tonight or tomorrow morning to get to you 3 council members right away. However, they are open to the public as well.
And I think that I would like to see them sooner the better, because that will help formulate questions. So I think it would be very appropriate to get them as soon as possible.
We'll have them for the council retreat tomorrow.
Great.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear that.
We'll have them for the council retreat tomorrow.
Okay.
So I would like to have a motion that the applications and resumes and letters of reference that have been submitted by the applicants would be sent, emailed to us, or in an envelope, however physically we can pick them up here. Or no, we're going to get tomorrow.
We were just going to photocopy a set for each of you
Okay.
and give them to you tomorrow.
And we will receive those tomorrow, each of the 3 council members that are participating.
Okay.
So that's the motion. I'll make that motion. Second, anybody?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember DePriest,
Yes.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
and Council President Roder.
Yes.
Council President Roder, I apologize. For the record, the last several motions, I have not called on Council President Satterfield. Can I state for the record that he has abstained from these these motions and these roll call discussions?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm going to ask Brad or Fonda, are we missing anything else at this point in time so that we can move forward with this process?
Oh, yes. We had also included the background check forms that everybody signed. So we're a little tight with time to do that, and I'm not sure if we can have them done. I mean, we can have them done perhaps before a final decision. I need to talk with Sean on that process. We go through a company, and we may be able to have it done. So what's your expectation, and what is your desire? What would you like us to work on as far as that, as far as timing, the background checks?
You mean what priority it takes? Is that your question?
Well, and just timing. Do you want them to be completed? I would think we're going to want them completed before you make a final decision and vote on it. So I get that. Do you want them done before the interviews? And then that gets to, I'm not sure that you'll have a final decision on Monday. If you are, I mean, I can talk with Sean and see if we can and get all 5 of those done prior to Monday. That may be a challenge. And we can let you know tomorrow.
What if we just commit to expediting the process as quickly as possible and keeping them informed on kind of where they're
We
at?
get what we get when we get it.
Okay, just that was
Right,
another
that's a
part
good
of
point.
what you had asked for, so. And moving it to the Monday is, I think, maybe quicker than we anticipated, so.
Is there any comment from council regarding the background checks?
No.
No.
I can't think of anything.
One thing I do want to discuss, though, is if we go into executive session to, and correct me if we've decided this or not, we're not going to go into, we can't take action in executive session. So do we have a need to go into executive session if we do the vote publicly anyway to take action on it? What is the reason we would have to go? The question is there a reason why we should go into executive session before we vote?
So as we've talked before, executive session is designed to give you a place to discuss personnel, which this would be, on any sensitive issues that need to maybe be hashed out amongst yourselves before you come out and deliberate and vote publicly. So your deliberations, your voting is public. So if you wanted to, for instance, discuss your scoring methodology on each particular applicant individually without doing that publicly. Do you have to go into executive session? Absolutely not. But if you wanted to, you could have executive session available to you for that, but you don't have to. But it need to be posted, and you could always post it and then decide not to utilize it.
That's
I think
what I was going to suggest. that we have.
Posting, but not having to utilize
Yeah,
it.
you can post it and then not utilize it.
issues may come up either on the
Agreed.
applications or whatever that may not be right to
Right.
discuss in public, so the option to do that, I think, is best.
Okay, I agree. Yeah. Do we need to have a motion on doing that?
On executive, on posting,
Whether we post an executive
you
session?
can just give direction to staff.
I'm hearing from the council, yes, we would like to have that option if needed for the process of the interviews to have an executive.
Because remember, you're still going to discuss in the public the reason that you would want to go into executive session. You're going to vote whether or not to go into executive session.
Okay.
So,
Okay, but we will have it on the agenda.
just in case.
Yes, okay. Whew. All right, I think that concludes the
Just make sure.
action item 3A, correct me if I'm wrong. We're good? Okay, well, then let's go to reports. 5A, City Administrator Report and Calendar Review. Brett, please.
Just a couple quick items. This is to get out to the public as well as you. I've sent you emails. Alan has discussed this as well, I think, at the last meeting. The Honeysuckle and 4th Street Roundabout project is underway, and that is going to cause issues. We're going to be getting calls. One of the calls that came that I wanted to actually just put out to the public, someone was concerned, is that we included that the road was going to be closed, but they were not clear whether or not that was to pedestrian or bicyclists. And so I confirmed with this person that yes, that it's going to be a public safety issue. They haven't dug into some of the whole, the trenches and things that they're going to do, which make it even more unsafe. But yes, it's closed for vehicular traffic, pedestrians, and others. And there is a posted way around that area. Again, we discussed it in the last meeting. The idea is if we close it for that period of time, that the plan is to have it back open before July 4th, which enters into the really busy season. It's going to be uncomfortable for people to come that way for that period of time. The city's spending $1.5 million to improve that intersection, and so I hope the public would plead with them to be patient with us for the 60 days. We know it's an inconvenience to go around, but when it's done, that intersection will be better and will be safer and provide, for the ability for people to come in and out. I mean, I go there fairly often. I know folks that live that way that go there every day and have a hard time. We've had, I think it was last year, we had a significant accident in that intersection. And so please be patient. We did have a report today that some folks at night are removing the barriers and going around that. So we would ask the public again, please honor the fact that that is closed and it's unsafe. Well, I don't know if it's cones or whatever, but they're going, they're moving something and going around.
It's barricades.
The barricades.
But we will take action on that. I mean, it's a safety issue. There's going to be holes out there, and we certainly don't want anybody in at
Bottom of a hole.
Right. It's one of those, it's going to be painful for a little while, but when we're done, it's going to be, it should be a great intersection, so. The task force, the Public Safety Task Force met last week. Ed and Roger were there. We had a great group that was there. They gave some great suggestions. We've set another meeting for May 4th. I think it's May 4th, to continue to move forward with discussions about public safety and what to do with with that. So I just wanted to give you an update that that is proceeding, and there was some, I thought, some great input and some good experience and knowledge by folks that are on that group. And there's multiple people that live in the community that I've never met before, that it's kind of nice to get to know them, and we'll hear from them. So that's going. The Honeysuckle boat launch report, the facilities group met last week, and there was some changes and some tweaks to that. And so that, I don't think it's going to take very much longer. We gave some time for staff and the two facilities folks to give any other comments. And that's close to being ready to come back when you're ready to discuss the boat launch here soon. So that was one item. The last one is tomorrow is from 10 to 2 is our council retreat. And so we'll be talking about budget and primarily budget things and direction for the year. So that's all I have.
Brett,
Yeah.
can we also state the Kite Festival's on Saturday?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Is there going to be plenty of wind for that?
No, let's hope so. I hope the rain just holds off. That it's. I saw it's supposed to rain. I'm like, oh. So if it can just hold off and.
Recreation, that's fun every year, even though I've gone a couple times, there hasn't been the wind that we want. The kids run around with their kites and they have a great time. So it's another fun event that the city of Hayden offers. And so we appreciate recreation and what they do.
Just before I came to our council meeting, my neighbor was up on a ladder in a tree in front of my house because his kid's kite was up there. He's had a pole. They're good people. Okay, Brett, anything else?
Nope, that's all I have. Thank
Okay,
you.
so are there any council members would like to talk during our roundtable? Member White, please.
Thank you. I would like to address what Mrs. Martin spoke about earlier about the ARPA, having an ARPA discussion, a special meeting. And I would like to propose that we have a special meeting that would let us hear the other side about the ARPA funds. I'm proposing that before our next city council meeting on May 10th, that we meet earlier and have an ARPA workshop led by Mrs. Martin and her crew.
I'd like to make some comments about that.
Okay.
Our county treasurer, Steve Matheson, wrote an excellent article about his research on ARPA funds and why the county should utilize them. And he has a lot of insight, has been an elected official for quite a while. We also have Joe Malloy, who is on the Post Falls City Council, had an excellent article in the Coeur d'Alene Press regarding, he spent, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of hours going through all of the documents. And his concern was, like was brought up here, is, is it an overreach by the federal government? What about executive orders? He's okay with the ARPA funds for the city of Post Falls. Now, I don't know anything about this, the woman tonight that spoke, but I would be more apt to have Matheson or Joe Malloy speak to us as an elected official, because they have most likely more in-depth knowledge of application to municipalities than this lady from Naples. I don't know. I don't know anything about her, but I would tend to want to consider their thoughts first before I went outside our community with somebody that's not elected. Yeah, please do.
I've spoken and attended meetings with Mr. Matheson also, and I watched the Post Falls April 5th council meeting where Mr. Malloy, as Council President Roeder stated, probably the most complete well-researched discussion on ARPA. He went point by point by point. And if you go to YouTube, you can watch it, the April 5th Post Falls Council meeting at about 58 minutes. The 58-minute mark, it starts. And I think, just for educational purposes, he talks about a lot of the issues that are being discussed out there, the the mandates, can they retroactively or in the future? And these have all been discussed by Mr. Matheson and all the attorneys, and I'm going to, assume again that our own attorney has looked into this. And so I agree with Council President Roeder on this, that that's well-researched information and quite educational as to the issue.
May I interject? I've also listened to Matheson, and what's his title?
He's the treasurer of
Treasurer
Cooley County.
Matheson, yeah. And I've also listened to the Post Falls meeting, and yes, they had really good points. I'm just saying that a lot of my constituents would also like us to hear the other side, just to give us information. And I think that it would, I do have a lot of constituents in Hayden that Mrs. Martin represents, and they would be here as well. So just to hear the other side, that's all I'm asking for. And there's other options. It doesn't have to be at the next city council meeting before that, but just to listen to the other side before we make final decisions.
Councilmember Satterfield, any comments?
No.
Of course I do. Those of you who know I can't pass this up, I do have two issues here, and I'm going to beg you again to bear with me as I read something that I feel is very important, and it has continually come up, and it has been of...
I was just going to clarify, is it relation to this?
I wanted to
Did we
make a
finish?
motion.
I think she was trying to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
We
Sorry.
don't have an action item.
No, I know,
Not
but
an action item,
if
but I
there's
would like
direction
to-
to add it to a future agenda.
Yes, I would like to add it to
and it doesn't sound like there is, but it was left hanging. And that's
Yeah, because we
that's
had
fine. If there's
discussed
not,
it earlier,
it sounds like
Brett,
there's
you
not
said
interest in doing
bring it
that.
up at this point, so.
Okay.
Can we?
All right.
So the staff would need direction from the, at least 2 council members to schedule a special meeting like this at some point. So.
I would make a motion that we have a.
But it's not an action item, so you can't
Okay.
make a motion.
Just got to get direction. But it doesn't sound like, well, there was direction to do so.
Okay.
The only thing I would comment on would be, I would like to hear, if we do want to discuss it, I'd like our legal counsel to give us some overview of it, not tonight, but sometime in the future. I look to our legal counsel and other elected officials on this issue. That's where I'm at. Ed, you had some comments?
Yep. Again, this is a very important issue, and I think we all struggle with it because there's a lot of gray area and a lot of misunderstanding involved with it. So here we go. I was sworn in on January 11th. In the past 3+ months, it's been like drinking water from a fire hydrant, trying to take everything in and understand and all this other stuff. Who to believe or trust, like so many things in life, it's trial and error and live and learn by experience. Again, I've said this, I was never intending to run for this position. I was approached around a year ago with the idea of running was presented. I told the individual I'd think about it. Over the following months before I filed for office or was elected in November and sworn in on January 11th, I met, spoke with on the phone, exchanged texts and emails about various issues. Primarily, since being sworn in and having more education as to what is acceptable communication or what is not, I have determined that over the last year, and possibly during the first couple of months since being sworn in, that I have possibly engaged in communication that has possibly violated open meeting rules. I trusted that the communication that I had prior to filing for candidacy, being elected and then sworn in, was permissible based on the response that I was getting from those I was speaking to. After being elected and having been informed of the open meeting rules, I began to question whether certain communication was allowed. When I asked, the response given most often was it's one-to-one conversation or it's not a quorum or the like. The more that I've learned, I'm concerned that I possibly have engaged in communication that is not in compliance with the open meeting rules. So I'm using this opportunity to publicly self-report that I have possibly violated open meeting rules. I've researched the issue and learned that there's an opportunity to cure such possible violations. By self-reporting, I hope to be initiating any curing that may be required. I do not feel that any communication has affected or swayed any decision that I have made as a council member since being sworn in on January 11th. Since coming to this realization, I have ceased any communication outside of council meetings, as that is the most complete way to ensure compliance, and will continue to not communicate in any manner except in session. I know that by self-reporting, I may be opening the door to additional potential penalties. I want to apologize to the people of Hayden if I have violated open meeting rules. I am willing to face and take responsibility for and accept any further action related to possible violation of open meeting rules. And the second issue I have here, and it just kind of, there was a comment made earlier about my being a roadblock. There was an email today that suggested that I recuse because I have voiced my feeling of the process being tainted. And so that suggestion that I recuse came from individuals suggesting I am creating roadblocks, so I'm confused. So, and that is the end of my comment. Thank you very much.
I just have one item, and this is the intersection of Honeysuckle and Government Way. Is there anybody in this room doesn't know where that's at? My thought, because I'm the acting mayor, council president, I have an identity crisis. I don't know exactly what I can and can't do. I just know that I don't want to be the interim mayor for my reasons. But anyway, I made a suggestion to Brett that if somehow we can work with the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency. They have $3 million in the bank. That's tax money that is collected on the increment value. I won't go into the definition of that, but that intersection is within the district. Urban renewal dollars were spent on the improvement between Government Way and 95 on Hayden Avenue. We can spend money on that. And I would like to make that a priority as a short-term acting mayor, that we could somehow make that happen. Now, the problem is that there's a Idaho Supreme Court case called Rexburg v. Hart that says that the urban renewal district and the city they're sole and separate. They're not an alter ego of one another. And I'm not an attorney, I'm just telling you what I read, okay? And so we can't tell them what to do. But they are entrusted with a lot of tax money, and they're not elected. I sit on that committee, or on the HURA board I have for a number of years, but somehow I'd like to encourage that we spend that money to fix one of the major traffic problems we have in the city. And that would be good use of taxpayers' money, is to help alleviate that one problem. So that's my comment. We're not taking any action on it, but I would like to somehow, if we can move forward on that, would be great. Are there any other comments? If not, I would like a motion to adjourn, please.
So motion.
Second.
All right, we're good. Thank you, everybody, for waiting through all this. It was a long meeting, important meeting. I appreciate you taking the time to be concerned about our city. Thank you.